My name is Scott Leslie, and I'm the development manager in the Foundation Division at SAS. And my team implements a variety of components where that are used across SAS applications. My group in particular implements things like content management, data import, data selecting, content selecting, and in this case, data viewing and editing. So today I'm going to give you an overview of the data viewer component that's used across solutions like SAS Visual Analytics and SAS Studio. It's used in a variety of other solutions as well, but these are the two first adopters, so I'll focus on them today. So to begin, let's talk about the goal. Dr. Goodnight came to my boss at the time and said he wanted to be able to easily edit SAS data sets on the web. So my team took that a little bit further and decided that our goal would be to create as close to a desktop viewing and editing experience as possible. And so that's what we think we've done here. So hope you enjoy it. The basic agenda here, we're going to talk about viewing, editing, do some demos, and then tease you with some features that we're working on that will hopefully show up in the future. So for the data viewer to be delightful to use, it needs to have a few characteristics, like being fast, being consistent across applications, not having paging controls. You don't want to have to page through 200 rows at a time as you go through your data. Supporting very large data sets, millions of rows, and having common features like sorting, filtering, and find. You'll find that the data viewer can support tables with many millions of rows, as well as hundreds of thousands of columns if you have really large tables. So it does get a little bit slower the more columns you have. If you have 500,000 columns, it's going to be a little bit slow, but it's still usable. So that's the basic features. And then in addition, we also have a variety of SAS-specific features, like export to CSV in Excel, changing column formats, hiding and showing and reordering columns inside the data set, viewing both formatted and unformatted data in case you need that, and the ability to pin columns to the left so that you can keep your context as you scroll through the data. Now onto the editing features. Of course, editing wouldn't be anything without cell level edits. So you're changing the value of a cell, committing that back to the table. But we also have a variety of column level edits, things like changing case, changing format, deleting white space. We also support copy and paste into and out of the data viewer. So if you want to take your data from SAS and put it into Excel pretty easily, you can just select some cells and paste into Excel. You can also paste from Excel back into the data viewer. Works quite seamlessly. You can also add new rows and columns, very handy, and delete rows and columns. There's a ton more features, but these are the basic ones that you'll likely use on a day-to-day basis. And of course, there are even more things in the editing realm as well. So one of the big things that we've heard from our customers is the ability to provide audit information about who's editing the tables. So we do record audit activities for all the edits made to the table. So if you make a cell level edit or if you make a column level edit, you save the table. It's going to record who did that, when, and how. We also can persist column format changes, do search and replace. Undo and redo is built into the data viewer from the base level, so anytime you make an edit, do a find and replace or anything, it's going to be able to be undoable if you desire. And of course, we can save the data back to the existing table or to a new table if you want. So enough talk about that. Let's jump back into a live demo here. Okay. Sorry, I've got to end the show, and then we'll jump over to SAS Visual Analytics. So earlier I created a report here, so I'm going to pull that up. And it has one data set, one table data source here, PRD sale. And if you go into the data source menu next to that, you can see the view PRD sale source table. So you can pull up the source table. information, and this is the data viewer component. And so it's comprised of a variety of different sections. You've got some basic information here at the top. You can switch between the data view and the column view, so you can look at information about your columns. And you can also see the number of columns and rows. Up here we've got the ability to turn on and off columns quickly, so if you want to hide a couple columns, it's easy to do. You can also search on columns. If you've got a lot of them, hide those. So it's a pretty powerful and quick way to look at your data there. You can also save from here. Undo and redo are supported once we start making edits. And then there are whole table level changes here, so you can discard filters and sorts if you've already done some. You can also refresh the data from the table, export to CSV in Excel, decide what shows up on the column header. You can show the name and the label if you want. And you can decide to show formatting or not as well. We'll keep that on. Here in the table, you'll see, we've got standard row header over here. You've got column headers, which have menus as well, so we'll go through those in just a moment. But so you can see that data viewer is quite quick to scroll through this small to medium-sized table, and you can just drag around as much as you want. It's quite performant. If you go to the column menu here, you can see all the options that you have there. We can hide the column, pin it to the left, pin it to the right if you want. You can auto size it so that you have a little more space for viewing more columns at once. We can select it to do things like copy and paste. We can also sort ascending or descending, or remove sorting if we've already done sorting. So do that. Remove sorting. Since this is pinned, we don't have move, insert, and those operations right now, but you can also change the format if you want to. Say I wanted it to be $12.4. Hit OK. It's going to go off to the server and calculate that and pull that data back. You can also replace inside of a column. So if you want to change a value, say 450, find all the 450s and change those to 451s. You can just hit replace all, and those will all be done. And like I said, if you don't like those operations, the results of that operation, you can hit undo, or you can hit redo many times as you want. The undo redo stack, I think, is 20 levels deep by default. If you guys start running into situations where that's not sufficient, let us know and we can bump that up. So that's most of the column operations that you can do on a numeric column. We also have some on character columns that are specific to them. So you can change the case to lowercase or uppercase. So if I want to lowercase the whole column, I can change the data there. I can also trim white space, leading, trailing, or both. And also do replaces on character columns as well, or partial character columns. So one of the other things you can do on both types is filter. So if I want to say contains education, apply that. Now I'm only seeing 720 of the rows out of the 1440. So it's filtered that down pretty far. And then I can always go back in and reset the filter, and I'm back to all my rows here again. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to SAS Studio and show you the data viewer there. So let's jump over to Code and Flows. So it's waiting for SAS connection here. The data viewer is used a few different places in here. I'll show you a couple of those off that are most commonly used once we get our connection to the SAS library here. Okay, so now we're up. So when you have your library connections, you can pull up any of them and say I want to look at SAS Help Air. I can just double click on that. It pulls up the data viewer here, and you can scroll through and look at the data. It's a little less performant in terms of scrolling here. It's pulling down from the compute server, so that's a little bit different, but you can still view very large tables in the data viewer here. One of the cool things in SAS Studio that they have is that they've had in prior versions as well is you can enter your own filters in here. So instead of bringing up the filter selector, you can just type in a filter and view that here. You can reset that as well. And you can also run a SAS program. So I'm going to pull in a snippet I have already pre-created for this and run that. When I run that, I'll find the output table over here, and it's also using the data viewer. And you can scroll through the data as well. Okay, now let's jump back over to Explore and Visualize, Visual Analytics, and show a few more things related to editing and specifically. So if I pull up the data viewer for PRD sale here, okay, so I can start, I can change my values from Canada to like Germany, and it'll commit that value back, and then I can save that back to PRD sale here. I can save it onto, and this will save it back to the CAS table that's backing this. It's going to warn me that this is already in use, and I'll say OK. Now, one of the cool things is, so if I close that, the data here hasn't really changed because I'm just showing actual sales. But if I go in and edit it once again, and I change some of the actual sales to, say, 4,000, then hit close. So I'm going to save the report, save it back to where it was. When I close the data viewer, the Visual Analytics is going to realize that we've changed the extent of the, Visual Analytics is going to realize that the data has changed and refresh the data used in the graph here. So it's a very powerful way to do sort of what-if scenarios or small tweaks to your data while you're using Visual Analytics. So jump back into the data viewer here. So one of the other cool things you can do is say I wanted to copy this set of data here. I can copy that. I can jump over to Excel, hit paste, and see my data right in Excel there. I can also do things like, say I wanted to copy some data out of Excel and paste it back into the data viewer. If I want to change the actual sales for a bunch of different values to 4,000, I can just go in here and hit paste on after selecting all those cells. And then when I close down, I can save the table back again. And now my table's saved. And Visual Analytics is going to refresh the graph again. But now you can see that my 4,000 bucket here is significantly larger than it was before. Okay. I'm going to jump back over to the presentation for just a second. Get that running again. Okay. So that's what's shipping today. You can get that in VIA 4 with Visual Analytics, SAS Studio, Model Studio, some of the health and science, health and life science applications as well are using Data Viewer. And then, but we've got some cool things that are coming soon as well. So I'm going to pull up a sample application that we use for demos. And like VIA 3.5? It is not. It's only available in VIA 4. So I'm going to pull up our Data Viewer sample here and show a couple new features that are not shipping yet. And no promises on when these will be available, but they should be available soon, hopefully. So we've got the Data Viewer here and standard PRD sale. I'm going to add a new calculated column to the right here, and I'm going to say, oh, sorry, got to my, okay, let's jump. There we go. Okay. So I just went in and let's go back and do that again. So I'm going to create a new calculated column to the right here. And so I'm going to call that actual predicted average. And I'm going to give it a formula here. So actual plus predict 2. And so I've just created a new calculated column here. That's the average of those. We're aiming to support all the functions and capabilities that Visual Analytics has in their calculated columns capabilities. So we've got a variety of functions and other capabilities in there too. So that's a pretty powerful new way to do this. And if you're in the data viewer, our goal is in the long term to be able to take these calculated columns and pull them back into as calculated items into your report as well. So. Close that down, and we're going to I'm going to go back in here. We'll start again. So one of the most exciting things that we've been working on since, a lot of this conference has been talking about AI and Gen AI capabilities is the ability to integrate that into the data viewer. So one of the things that we've been doing here, we've got this little Gen AI icon here. If I turn that on and I start making edits, then the data viewer is going to start looking at those edits and trying to predict what you're going to do next. So if I go in here and I type Canada correctly, I just keep typing Canada in lowercase or mixed case here, then it's going to realize that and it's going to predict that I'm going to change all the other Canadas, and not just the Canadas, but also if I scroll down far enough, the Germanys and other countries to be mixed case as well. And I can just hit accept on that, and it's merged the data back into the column that I've been editing. And so we're feeding this prompt into an LLM so that we can generate a wide variety of different predicted edits there. And it's the same as if I just go in here and I start typing E for East. It's going to go off and try to predict what the future changes to those values are as well. And so you can see that it's also predicted that West is going to change to W. And we've run a lot of simulations, things like the LLM figuring out that we're changing the value from a degree to the sign of a degree and other capabilities. So we're very hopeful that once we are able to ship this, that it'll provide a lot of quick editing capabilities to you. Okay, I'll jump back over to my demo here. Okay. So, takeaway here is the data viewer is a powerful way that you can edit data, view data in SaaS solutions. It's modern, it's fast, and it's got a lot of capabilities. We're very interested in hearing what additional capabilities that you'd find interesting in the data viewer. So if you'd like to, feel free to reach out to me, and hopefully we can work some of those into the solution as well. So, happy to take questions.
Is the data editing capability in SAS Studio as well, or only in Visual Analytics?
It is not currently in SAS Studio. We hope to have it there in the future, but it's a little bit different problem, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was wondering how that gets to the database.
Yeah, yes. We have had a lot of discussions on that.
Yeah, in this case, you're just modifying the table that's actually in SAS. It's actually tied to another source table below it. Is there a connection you make that you can actually edit it here and edit the source table, or is that?
Some of the connectors do allow bidirectional save operations. So you have to check on the individual database that is connected to the CAS table or through the CAS server. And in that case, you just have to check and see which ones support the bidirectional save. So we've been talking to the single store connector. People have wanted to save back to single store, and so the single store connector does support save. So we're working on that with them at the moment. Anything else? No. Sorry, I can't quite hear you. Let's see if Brian may have a microphone for you back here. He's turning it on now. Try now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been using Tableau and Power BI for the last 5 to 6 years for the visualizations. And if I want to transition to SAS Visual Studio, which mindset should I go with? Because we have like a lot of complicated visualizations built we built them in Tableau first, and then we transitioned everything to Power BI last year in our company. And then if we want to like transition to this in the future, which mindset should I go with? Is it going to be easier, difficult transition? Because it took a lot of time for us to like create everything from scratch, whatever we had in Tableau in Power BI.
Yeah. So, is your question which to transition to SAS Visual Analytics? Yeah. I mean that's our primary report building tool that provides all the capabilities, all the graphing, all the analytics that you're going to find useful there. The actual method of transitioning from Power BI to Visual Analytics, we don't have a way to do that as far as I'm aware, like take a Power BI report and convert it into a Visual Analytics report. But that is an interesting question. I can arrange for you to meet the Visual Analytics Development Manager to talk about that, though. Thanks. They're not, but we do check before we write back to make sure that no one's made an edit since you brought the table up. So, yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for coming, and feel free to give us feedback anytime. Thanks.